Have you seen this show on Netflix?
Welcome.
You're gonna save me, right?
It was a peek behind the curtain at a practice that might seem really old-fashioned. But Jewish matchmakers are busier than ever. They have a whole elaborate system using dating resumes, family histories, DNA analysis, and even background checks to figure out if two people are compatible. It's like LinkedIn meets an FBI investigation, but for love. In many Orthodox circles, being set up by matchmaker isn't just one way couples meet, it's the only way. When it comes to my own dating, I'm skeptical. Having a stranger sift through prospective dates sounds just about as romantic as job hunting. But I always like to keep an open mind, so I talk with some matchmakers to find out. Does Jewish matchmaking hold the key to finding true love? It might sound crazy to trust a total stranger to find your soulmate, but Jewish couples have been doing this for hundreds of years, and the matchmaking system these days is a lot more sophisticated than Yenta the matchmaker from Fiddler on the Roof.
I'll find a husband for every one of them. But you shouldn't be so picky, right?
Yenta is an iconic character. She's also a total stereotype. She's a village busybody who just shrugs her shoulders and matches up people at random. These days, communities don't just rely on one matchmaker to pair up their singles, and matchmakers can wear a lot of hats. One part dating coach, one part database manager, and one part therapist for anxious parents and daters. Ever since I started dating in the Jewish world, I've been unsure about whether or not I should try this whole matchmaking system. I'm 38, which by some standards nearly makes me an old maid, and I'm a convert, which means I don't have a Jewish family to analyze or a neat box I can check to describe my own customs. So I decided to go on a journey to uncover whether this centuries-old system is outdated or if it could hold the key to finding true love. Step 1, meet some matchmakers. Rabbi Jack Cohen is a former surgeon who now makes matches as a full-time job.
I'll start by trying to understand who the person is by taking them through a series of questions, who they are, what they do, their backgrounds, their interests, and define what makes them tick.
When you meet a matchmaker, it transforms them from a total stranger to someone who has a sense of you and what you're looking for in a future partner. Now they can vouch for you when they're setting you up. Step 2, putting together a dating profile. Think of the profile like a professional resume, but instead of listing your past work history and bullet points about your achievements, it's personal. It'll include information like where you went to school, how you like to spend your time, who your parents and siblings are, all the way down to the tiniest details, like your hair and eye color. I sat down to create my own profile using the matchmaking website Saw You at Sinai, which connects Jewish singles from all walks of life with matchmakers around the world. The site's founding matchmaker is Tova Weinberg.
We make a shidduch a day.
Shidduch is a Hebrew word for match.
I would say on the average of 365 a year. So 40,000 people on the site. You know, I can do it anywhere. I can sit in my toilet and I can make matches on my computer.
The website's algorithm helps matchmakers sort through thousands of profiles, and when a matchmaker strikes gold, they'll pair them up.
It is so difficult to make a match. It is so difficult. But I keep on plugging away and I keep on trying.
As I filled in my profile, I was struck by how many categories there were for religious observance, and they range all the way from very traditional to spiritual but not religious and just Jewish. Every category had its own differentiators. Things like whether a woman plans to cover her hair after marriage, or whether she subscribes to stricter standards of modesty, like only wearing skirts. And the questionnaire included some litmus tests for religious values, like whether or not you would watch television or go to the movies. In this context, TV and movies are stand-ins for secular culture. Asking singles about these habits is a shorthand for how exposed they are to the world outside of religious Judaism. It might feel initially like you're asked to put yourself in a box when you're creating a dating profile. No person fits perfectly into predefined categories. We're all multidimensional and unique. But instead of finding this invasive, I found it refreshing. Dating profiles are surprisingly reassuring. They tell you if the other person is aligned with you on core issues. And like a job application, dating profiles even include personal references. These are people who can speak to your character or know your family well. After the matchmaker suggests two people for each other, each side will start doing their homework. But more on that later. Once the matchmaker knows you and has your profile in hand, then they can start drilling down on what really matters to you in a future partner. Like whether you're open to dating long distance, or if you're willing to date someone who might have a more unusual family background. Susie Goldberg is a matchmaker who's made about 60 successful matches.
I'm asking them to choose 3 things that are vitally important to them and things that they won't give up on. So the list initially can be huge, but when push comes to shove, keep your options open.
Of course, we all have preferences and things that we like or dislike in someone we date. That's completely valid, and figuring out what matters to us is what dating is all about. But matchmakers can gently guide people who might be a little too selective and would otherwise miss out on someone great.
What I might ask them to look past is if the girl is 5'10" and the guy's 5'9" and she's a little older, is that really necessarily for you a no-go zone? Is that a non-negotiable? And my job, if I feel like it's inappropriate, is to wake them up and get them to smell the coffee.
And to help their clients be at their absolute best, some matchmakers will even do a dress rehearsal of a first date.
I may also determine that they have roadblocks in their dating performance. I'm going to do a dry date with them. I'm going to see how they perform on a date. What kind of questions do they ask? Do they smile? How's their micro skills? Those are nonverbal skills. Are they comfortable in a setting with the opposite sex? Do they know how to behave in such a setting? What questions are they asking?
And once a matchmaker has an idea of two people to set up, each side moves to step 3, research. And this includes something very unique to the Jewish community. When you're getting ready for a date, maybe you're thinking about your outfit, some good jokes, and where you'll go, but you're probably not thinking about the other person's genetic information. But in the Jewish world, matchmakers often encourage people to check for genetic compatibility before they even go on a first date. Because the Jewish community is relatively small, many Jews are carriers for certain hereditary diseases. That's why some Jewish organizations offer DNA screening and can discreetly check if two people are carriers for the same condition. If that sounds intense, I get it. It's a lot to think about before even meeting someone. But for matchmakers and the people they set up, it's better to know early on than to risk heartbreak later. When it comes to the logistics of getting from a matchmaker's suggestion to a first date, every community has its own flavor. In the traditional Orthodox community, it's a group effort. There's a matchmaker, the parents, and of course, the actual daters. There's a couple of reasons behind this. First, men and women generally don't socialize at all until they're ready to date for marriage. Even from an early age, boys and girls attend same-sex schools, and friendships with anyone of the opposite gender is strongly discouraged. So when singles are ready to get married, their only way of meeting is through a matchmaker. And in the strictly Orthodox community, people tend to start dating for marriage really young, like right out of high school or in their early 20s. They're still living at home, and so their parents are their first line of defense in dating. They're the ones talking to the matchmakers. And remember the references on dating profiles? After a matchmaker makes a suggestion, the parents are the ones calling the references. Doing all this research and parents being this involved might sound really foreign, but in more traditional communities, parental involvement isn't viewed as something negative or invasive at all. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child, and so it takes a village to marry one off as well. Doing this much digging before a couple even goes out is also important because the courtship period in strictly Orthodox communities is brief. Couples might date for only 3 or 4 weeks before deciding if they want to get married. Many couples won't even exchange phone numbers until after they get engaged, which means that between dates, they're not texting each other or even chatting on the phone. The matchmaker will be the go-between all the way up to engagement.
They won't swap numbers. It will go through me to the end, and I will actually know the proposal before the girl. I will probably discuss the timing with him, check with her that she's not going to say no, check with the parents. And after the 4th or 5th date, I will actually say to both, are you thinking about him, her? Have you planned the date, or are you just going to say, we'll see where we go? Is it important to you to plan? Is it the scenario that you see something that you did on the first date and you're reaching for the phone? Oh, I wish I could phone to share that with them. You know, I'm planting seeds. These are the questions that they need to ask. To the parents, I'll say, do you see your child happy? Is your child settled? Are they relaxed? Are they nervous? Are they anxious? What's bothering them? So that's my role.
Things are different in more modern Orthodox circles, where the rules are a little more relaxed. Men and women might have grown up attending co-ed schools or going to co-ed summer camps, but they'll still choose to work with a matchmaker to widen their network and help them meet more people. And the process is pretty much the same, except they'll exchange numbers earlier, maybe after a few dates or even right away.
When they've already swapped numbers, I'm still checking in weekly. I'm still checking in, and I'm also checking in with their parents, just to see that they're happy. It's not behind their back, it's a team.
Modern Orthodox couples will date anywhere from a few months to a few years before getting married. And matchmaking isn't just for people who are Orthodox. Matchmakers work with people across the religious spectrum. That's usually a much more hands-off process.
I'll say, look, this is their profile, this is a little bit about them, I can tell you I've met them, here's her phone number, call her. And then perhaps every 10 days, 2 weeks, I'll check in to see how they're doing. And I'll say that I'm not being nosy, I'm just checking in because if it's not working, let me know. I'll put you back on my books.
So between meeting with a matchmaker, reading dating profiles, and doing background checks, two people know a lot about each other before they ever meet in person. But matching two people on paper is one thing. Whether or not there is chemistry is a whole other story. First dates, especially blind dates, can be nerve-wracking. We're not always at our best on a blind date, and opening up to a stranger can take time. And this is where matchmakers can help. After a first date, the matchmaker will check in to see how it went, and they can counsel daters past some initial hesitancies or hang-ups.
If I feel that they are mistaken in their assessment of a person, they'll say, for example, that person's too quiet to me. But I know that I've sat with them and it can be open and they can be conversant. I could shed some light on that.
But they won't push people too far past their comfort zone or tell someone to keep dating a person who might display some troubling characteristics.
Never push. You're old enough to get married. You're old enough to decide if you want to go again. I see my role very much as listening to team boy, team girl, and I'm in the middle. The only time I will try to get them to go again is if I'm hearing hesitation from one or both. If either one of them says, I'm not sure, then there's room for another date.
You never want to look past something which is a quality of character that's a deficit. If a person, for example, has an anger issue, that I'm not going to look behind. Or the person is rude, or is inconsiderate.
If this all sounds like a lot of work, it is. It can take a matchmaker hundreds of tries before a match works out.
I get up at 5:30 in the morning, I go to bed at 9, and for 4 hours a day, I don't do matchmaking. The rest of the day, I'm doing matchmaking.
Setting people up is a round-the-clock endeavor, which might leave you wondering, how does someone do this full-time? Is it paid? Well, it's a controversial question. For some matchmakers, setting people up is more of a side gig, but for others, it's their full-time job, and they'll put hours into meeting with clients, pitching couples on prospective dates, and coaching them through the process. If a matchmaker pairs a couple that end up getting engaged, often both sides will pay the matchmaker a fee, and the fee can be as much as a few $1,000s, which might sound high, but considering how instrumental a matchmaker can be in changing your future, a lot of people think it's money well spent.
I ask for a donation to my favorite charity, but many people need this for a parnasa. They really do. And the going rate now is $4,000, $2,000 from the chassan, $2,000 from the kala. And I ask that, and I ask them to give it to my favorite charity. Many don't give that much. Many give me nothing. Many give me more. You know, it all depends what they can afford.
After hearing all this, I still wasn't sure I was right to take the plunge and work with a matchmaker. But Susie had some wise words.
I think I would not exclude any scenario. So keep the magic of the natural meeting, whether it's in shul or at conferences or at social events or whatever. Get out there. But when that's not working, or side by side, maybe you're meeting lovely people, but not your Mr. person, then you need to help it along. And whilst that's happening, at the same time, let's nudge it along with the clinical scenario of matchmaker.
These conversations made me realize that instead of being a cold and distant process, matchmaking could actually broaden my dating horizons. In fact, this whole experience helped me appreciate how much a matchmaking system emphasizes values over superficial connections and deepens your self-awareness by asking you to figure out who you are and what you want. I don't know if traditional matchmaking will be my path to marriage, but Judaism asks everyone to put in their personal effort, doing what's in your power to change your future. Maybe matchmaking is right for you, or maybe not. But for anyone tired of swiping, it just might be worth it.